we're finally here. The road to WrestleMania has been completed in all its sluggish glory, for the most part. And now we kickstart by retrospective of the road to WrestleMania's main event. Ronda Rousey versus Charlotte Flair versus the man, Becky Lynch, for the now both titles are up for grabs. Um, this build-up has had a very troubled history, dating all the way back to SummerSlam when the slap her around the world. But even before that, there's a bit of backstory with this. You see, originally this match was planned and penciled for WrestleMania as the main event a year prior at WrestleMania last year. You see, they were originally going to do Charlotte Flair versus Ronda Rousey, and before that, it was going to be Ronda Rousey versus Asuka. And the idea was going to be that Asuka and Ronda Rousey would fight, and it would be undefeated versus undefeated, and it would be for the title, whichever won, and they would ultimately collide, and there would be much rejoicing. But then Vince McMahon, in his prejudice against the Japanese people for something that makes no sense, besides xenophobia, because really that's the only explanation I can think of why Vince would do this, we had instead got transitioned to Charlotte Flair versus Ronda Rousey. And I was like, okay, whatever, it's really not. I was surprised Roman Reigns is on the contingent list. But yeah, Asuka was originally supposed to fight Ronda Rousey, and the plan was for the hint to be made through armbar maneuvers that Asuka would do to mock Ronda, and they hinted at it at Royal Rumble when she made her debut, and look how that turned out. Look at Asuka now. She went from being SmackDown Women's Champion to the pre-show in 1 week. Now allow me to give Vince McMahon something that I hope eases his sanity. But moving on from that, however, months later, as this plan was already formulated, an unexpected slap heard around the world occurred where Becky Lynch pulverized Charlotte Flair after she had won the SmackDown Women's Championship for the 7th time? Yeah, it's the 7th time. And this would lead to a contention in issues regarding how fans wanted Becky to win and how corporate wanted it. And this leads to this whole storyline where Becky has to be fighting against the management, basically, because they want her to be a heel, the fans want her to be a face. And then as the months went on, all of a sudden Becky is a major player to fans. Like, she would defeat Charlotte and become SmackDown Women's Champion, defeat her again at Evolution, ending their feud supposedly and hopefully to many. And then at Evolution, we got teased the Becky Lynch versus Ronda Rousey match that people wanted to see now. And they made the announcement after some heavy reformatting of the entire Survivor Series pay-per-view, because originally Survivor Series was not supposed to be SmackDown versus Raw. It was originally going to be just a normal pay-per-view, and because Vince didn't like the idea of Roman Reigns fighting AJ Styles again for reasons. Just hands. So this leads to a reformatting of the pay-per-view, like I said, and we were originally going to get Becky Lynch and Ronda Rousey. However, the face breaker herself went and broke Becky's face in. That's not how it gets to a push. So clearly, in Vince's eyes, if you punch the iris, you get a push, aka Jinder Mahal giving Finn Balor a concussion. And then he's immediately rewarded the WWE Championship, and we all know how that reign went. But yeah, so there's an obvious lot of stuff going on with this. And you have to also remember that Charlotte Flair and Ronda Rousey was still penciled as the main event at the time at WrestleMania. But then when Becky Lynch had to be replaced because she had a concussion, they ultimately went with, okay, let's do the match earlier. And then reports and rumors started going out that because of how popular Becky was getting, the WrestleMania main event changed again that it was going to be Becky Lynch and Ronda Rousey. However, before that, after those reports came out, another report came out that confirmed that Charlotte was told she was guaranteed the spot of the main event at WrestleMania, which should be a massive insult to everybody in the company, because when you're basically going to backstage and telling someone, hey, you're going to be guaranteed the main event spot at WrestleMania because fuck anything else that happens in the next couple of months. I'm pretty sure that rubbed a lot of feathers backstage. I wouldn't be surprised. But that also was leading to this huge issue. Like, so is Ronda going to fight Becky or is Ronda going to fight Charlotte? And then Becky would drop the title to Asuka a month later, and Charlotte Flair wouldn't, leading to this optimistic hope for everybody that, oh, well, Becky's going to go to Raw after the Royal Rumble and win the title at WrestleMania, leading to this epic encounter between Asuka and Becky, which Asuka would defeat Becky clean. I'll bring that up later. And then Becky would get herself involved in the Royal Rumble after Lana had to get a knee injury thanks to Nakamura, somehow leading to Nakamura and Rusev teaming up. I'm not kidding. Why? So anyways, moving on from that, due to all these events, this would lead to Becky coming to Raw and challenging Ronda after she won the Royal Rumble, leading to this massive ovation from the fans. And I had said this. I went all in on this. I said this. I think it's time we need to start considering, is Becky and Ronda's match going to be as loud and vocal as Hulk Hogan and The Rock from WrestleMania 18? I am not kidding when I said that. Like, a lot of people were agreeing with me. Like, if that was just the Raw crowd being so popped for this, then imagine what happens when you get all the hardcore fans, 80,000 of them, and pack them all in MetLife Stadium. They will go crazy. And especially if you have this in the UK, but there's now a chance that Saudi Arabia has a better chance of getting WrestleMania now. Anyways. And then the storyline fell apart because then they said, okay, we need to somehow slog this down. You see, we have something going here, and we could do promos and build-ups and whatnot, and we could do a little break and let Becky do all this, but we're going to screw it all up. So here's our plan. We're going to have Becky have a knee injury thanks to Nia, and they're going to have this whole authority involvement involving Triple H and Stephanie saying that, oh, you need to see the doctor. Becky doesn't trust them for whatever reason, even though Becky should, in an ideal sense, I feel like Becky should be more, like, I get Stephanie because Stephanie is the creator of women's wrestling in her eyes, but I would think that she would trust Triple H more because he's the father of NXT, the place she comes from. So, yeah, that just bugged me a little bit. But, yeah, moving on from that. This would lead to another series of delays regarding Becky's knee injury that she supposedly sustained. And subsequently, it would not help her case whatsoever in regards to the whole, storyline regarding Becky and Ronda main eventing. And then ultimately Becky went to outside WWE doctors that contacted the WWE doctors and told them, yeah, she's cleared. And then all things are done. And then they demand an apology. Becky's left to decide about this. And Becky ultimately apologizes. And they say, well, that's it. There's no catch. You can have your match. Here. Okay. Well, that looks like... Oh, wait. Vince McMahon's coming out. And... Oh, God. Becky is suspended for 60 days and replaced with Charlotte. This is when the story went completely downhill for me. Not the idea of Charlotte being inserted, The idea of how they executed it was my problem now. Like, back then I was really pissed off, and I was prepared to make a huge rant video exploring the analysis of Vince McMahon refusing to act like an adult even though he's in his goddamn 70s, because he's still bitter that his daddy didn't let him be a wrestler, that wrestlers had the balls to become bigger than Vince and bigger than WWE and go somewhere else, or The Rock or CM Punk having balls to say, I'm out of here, I'll go make a living somewhere else, I don't need you. Like, especially the way Vince worded it, where Vince says Becky thinks she's bigger than WWE, except there was never a single moment where Becky had said she was bigger than WWE. Is it because she calls herself the man? Which I'll get to in a moment. Because she says she's the top of the industry? She's the person that everyone wants to see? Because wouldn't Vince want that kind of person? Which is accurately true. But no, they can't use that because that would make too much sense. And instead Vince says, Becky, you're not the man, damn it! I'm the man. I'm also God for a variety of reasons. And it's not because I'm a 9-year-old child trapped in a 70-man's body. And I might have daddy issues, but still. So this leads to Vince suspending Becky and replacing Charlotte. Now, here's the ideal scenario they could have went with that would have backed things up. They could have went with, I don't know, it's kind of obvious what I'm about to say. They could have used the whole Becky wasn't officially added to the Royal Rumble by the management, just a producer or a guy who does things, Fit Finlay. And also consider the fact that she lost to Asuka clean. That could have been made a case as well, that Becky couldn't beat Asuka. What makes you think it could beat the submission specialist Ronda Rousey? Like, that would have made more sense in Vince's eyes and the management's eyes. But they didn't do that, so any logic they could have went with went thrown out the window. And subsequently, this led to more contention issues with fans, because Charlotte, like I had said, Charlotte was already guaranteed the main event months ago. When your boss is saying, you're guaranteed the main event. I don't care if you get injured. You're guaranteed the main event. We have no backup plans whatsoever. And if we somehow do have an event that you get injured, then we're just going to cancel the whole thing. At least that's what I'm interpreting that as. Because that's a very stupid mentality to have. Like, you have all your eggs in one basket instead of having multiple eggs in multiple baskets. Because then you have, if Charlotte goes out, then we have this main event plan. If Becky goes out, we have this main event plan. If we have this, we'll just go back to Roman. Oh, wait, Roman has leukemia, so we can't do that. And it wouldn't be believable now, especially if it was after Royal Rumble, and now that would really cause problems. So, yeah, that was the problem. Like, they don't put eggs in different baskets. They say, throw it all months prior. Let's see how that works. This is a stroke of luck for them that Charlotte didn't get injured. And fans on the internet went livid. Like, there were death threats to Vince. There were death threats to Charlotte. There were, I hope she gets permanently injured, Charlotte. Death threats to everybody. And I was like, I just wrote Vince is a colossal dick. I just said I'm insulting Vince. I didn't do any death threats. Also out of touch, senile, and in need of medical checkup and need of mental help, but still. But yeah, this led to more issues with fans and more about how just months ago they said, we're going to give you exactly what you want. And then Vince backtracks on that and doubles down and says, that was Triple H saying that. I'm not him. I'm bitter. Especially when Triple H is scripted on television to say to Becky that do not listen to these people, their opinion doesn't matter. Triple H, didn't you say that we're the authority? You said it yourself. I'm like, if it was Vince, that would make more sense because the man is insane and batshit crazy. But Hunter, you're supposed to be the sane one of the entire McMahon family that's not Shane McMahon and maybe Linda. oh, we're not gonna bring that up. And there is another major problem with how they went about the alteration. You see, I had cited that this led to two major retcons to the WWE main event history. You see, let's see, back in 2015, Roman Reigns was guaranteed the spot at the main event, and the Authority manipulated him to put his spot on the line. And they were backstage, and they had publicly said that they can't take away his spot, his guaranteed spot, his legal right to main event WrestleMania because he won the Royal Rumble, and they can't do that. They would have to trick him to give it up. They didn't do that with Becky. And then there was 2009, where Randy Orton had said he had a legal right to compete at WrestleMania and be the main event since he won the Royal Rumble, and he could sue the company and file an injunction and shut down the whole event. So Vince basically ignored two main event WrestleMania storylines they had going at the time with Orton and Roman Reigns. Please note, Roman Reigns especially. And just said, Don't fall for it. Don't listen to any of that logic stuff. Don't remember any of that. We think you're stupid. Because Becky could have just said, I'll sue then. You had no right to take away my guarantee. And Vince never brings up the Asuka stuff that they could have done that would have helped out. But no, they just said, oh, we're taking away your legal right. And Becky would like, okay, then I'll sue. But then people would probably argue, that's not who Becky is. She's supposed to be a fighter. And I was like, okay, there's a difference between trespassing and beating people up, as awesome as that sounds on TV. There's also the part where you could hurt Vince more by burning away his money. So, yeah. Becky did have a legal right. She won. There was no complaints made about her winning the Royal Rumble like they could have done. And Becky could have technically sued the company and threatened legal action in storyline terms because Orton threatened to do the same thing if they fired him. Becky got suspended, but still it's the same thing. And plus, Vince's way of suspending her, like, because she hurt your feelings. That's not really a legal right to suspend your employee because she has a persona and she's living a life through this, and because you're triggered by it, that's not really an employee legal right. Oh wait, they're independent contractors, because John Oliver and whatnot. Yeah, I could talk about that, but there's a reason why I haven't. It's primarily because I know if I talk about it, I will get furious. But yeah, so that led to more weeks of Becky trespassing and beating people up, especially at Elimination Chamber. Then they all were like, okay, Ronda, we give you what you want. You'll have your match with Becky. You get Becky back in the match, but Charlotte still stays. Ronda turns heel during all this. She gets finally fed up, and everyone was like, why wasn't Ronda like this right from the beginning? Because it really fits her. And they try to make her a face. In fact, one of the original plans I heard that WrestleMania was going to end very differently. One of the plans was to have Becky, Ronda, and Charlotte end their match. Becky wins, and they all share an emotional embrace. They're hugging, and Stephanie McMahon comes out and hugs them because she needs to take all the credit. And the women come out and give their applause, and fireworks go everywhere. And oh my God, that's pathetically stupid. And they could. And I'm so glad they changed that. Like, that seriously would be the biggest insult to continuity ever. Like, yes, I could understand to an extent why they would do that, but at the same time, it's like, I want a logical story. Like, you can have all the women come out, just don't have Charlotte, Becky, and Ronda embrace after months of attempting to murder each other. Just have Ronda and Charlotte leave the ring, frustrated that they lost, and Becky celebrates, and the rest of the women locker room come out and clap with Becky, knowing that they've done it. They finally got to this point in wrestling. So, yeah. And yeah, all throughout this entire insertion, I haven't mentioned Charlotte at all after the whole suspension stupidity. Yeah, Charlotte was turned into the third wheel. Like, a lot of people were more mad about this because and I brought this up as well. This would be like putting Kurt Angle at WrestleMania 18's Icon versus Icon match. The problem is that wouldn't work. Yes, Kurt Angle's a great talented athlete, but it wouldn't make sense context-wise because this was The Rock and Hogan's business, and it was the match everyone wanted to see. Well, maybe Stone Cold and Hogan, but that's a completely different subject altogether. And the effect wouldn't be as much there. Like, imagine if Hulk Hogan was hulking out when The Rock struck him multiple times and the fans went crazy, and then suddenly Kurt Angle comes in and just hits Hogan on the head when he's doing this, and the fans just lose interest afterwards. That would be the effect. That's the effect that would happen if they did something that stupid. So, yeah, that was the vibe everyone was saying, how they compared that to Ronda and Becky's match. And Charlotte was really the third wheel. They had no attempt to try and justify her place. They made no logical conclusions to do it. They just were like, it's Charlotte, she's a Flair, and in Vince's preference, she's a blonde, and she has enhancements because of surgery. So Vince wins the debate. Because he's the owner, damn it. Yeah, I always hear that complaint about how Charlotte has blonde hair and had surgery at her area. And I was like, okay, I get Vince has a probable fetish problem for blonde women, but still, I'm not going to go into that. Plus, we've seen Mandy Rose and Alexa Bliss and how he was obsessed for Alexa Bliss for a while. So, yeah, moving on from that. Afterwards, Becky has to win this match against Charlotte. Ronda decides, yeah, Becky has to win back her spot, even though it really should have been the other way. Charlotte should technically earn her spot. Ronda comes out, screws both of them, and decides, I want to fight both. And they do it. Ronda comes out, beats up Becky Lynch, then leaves, and says, I'll fight both. And this would lead to Becky finally ditching the crutch she had and walking with her head held high and declaring that she's going to main event WrestleMania and win the Raw Women's title. And this leads to more hijinks when Dana Brooke gets involved. Okay. Dana Brooke comes out and criticizes Ronda for everything she's done, for her attitude, and I was like, oh yeah, you're really expecting me to believe this. Also, why does Dana Brooke look different? Like, she looked way different than she did several months ago. So, yeah. That went absolutely nowhere, so no one cared about that match. So yeah, then we get this. Then we get Becky, Charlotte having their continued feud on SmackDown, and this leads to eventually Charlotte versus Asuka on SmackDown unexpectedly, because originally it was supposed to be a fatal 4-way match between Naomi, Sonya Deville, Mandy Rose, and Carmella. I completely forgot. They advertised this for several days, and then they canceled it right out of the get-go. And Naomi is now storming on Twitter like a pissed off and everything, along with all the other women pissed off. And they were ready to riot, basically. And I was like, oh man, this is not good. Charlotte gets handed the Women's Championship of SmackDown after she beats Asuka. again, clean. You know, Asuka should be passing out instead of tapping out in such a short time span. But yeah, this got real bad when that happened. It was like, why? And then a report came out as to why Vince changed everything at the last second. You see, one, Vince believes Asuka and the foreman, that one of the foremen was going to fight, the four fatal four-way match, the people who were in that match, you know, the women who break their bones and injure themselves 300 days a year working for your sad, pathetic ass. Oh, he thought no one cares about them. No one cares about Asuka, Carmella, Mandy Rose, Sonya Deville, Naomi. Vince, you generally think no one cares about any of the women? You generally just said that to them, didn't you? I was like, okay, quit. Go ahead, get a legal resignation signed, and walk. Because there's no way... If I was in one of their shoes, and I was told, oh, your match is canceled. What? But we've been advertising this for days. What's the change? Oh, well, you see, I know you work for us for 300 days a year. You put your body on the line for us and for the company and for all these people's entertainment. But we don't really think people will care about you. I would have just been like, fuck you. Like, holy shit, that was just bad way to lead. If that report's true. But from what Naomi's displaying on Twitter, it does sound like that did happen backstage. So, yeah. That just got worse. So now you have this huge dilemma with Charlotte now, SmackDown Women's Champion, but the Raw title's still on the line. But then another report comes out that for the next few days, they were debating how this match would go now, because now that Charlotte's Women's Champion, they still need to get her in the Raw's match. At this point, made no sense. And they were like, okay, so is this going to lead to a unification match? Because, well, I understand that because the division's much weaker now. Because, one, Vince just said no one cares about 5 women. That made up the whole of SmackDown's women division. And Alexa Bliss is never wrestling for some reason, even though she disputes his non-injury. And Dana Brooks in catering most of the time. And Ember Moon's injured. And Nia Jax and Tamina, not really people's interests. There was no one. So, and plus Sasha Banks and Bayley, they were tag team champions, so they couldn't do anything with them for the singles division. So, yeah, they were like, just merge them. And then there was reports that came out afterwards that said, oh, we're not going to actually do that. You see, what we're really going to do is a 2 out of 3 falls match. You see, it's a 2 falls match. You see, if Becky pins Charlotte or Ronda, they win the Raw title or the SmackDown title, and then we'll do a second match while that's going on, where it's up for the SmackDown title. And I was like, oh my god, you're rehashing 2000, aren't you? You rehashed WrestleMania 2000? Kurt Angle, Chris Benoit, and Chris Jericho's Eurocontinental Championship match? You're really gonna rehash WrestleMania 2000? Really? Like, for all intents and purposes, I did enjoy that show, but a lot of people hated it for a variety of reasons, specifically the main event not being The Rock and Triple H only. But yeah, I was like, holy crap, you're really gonna go back to 2000? Oh man. So luckily they announced on April Fool's Day, and luckily it wasn't the Stephanie was inserting herself like everyone was fearing because of Stephanie, and she did joke at that, and everyone hated it because we don't care if you're joking, Stephanie. You would do that if you wanted to. So Stephanie decides it's gonna be a winner takes all match. One fall will win both titles. So basically, we're gonna make Becky Lynch look like Conor McGregor except a woman. and much more professional. This leads to, later on in the night, a massive fight between Charlotte, Becky, and Ronda after their match with the Riot Squad. I would have done it one thing differently. It should have just been a big promo segment. They shoot from the hip, and then they bring up Ronda's losing problems she has, and then she snaps and attacks both, and this leads to the chaotic overbooking they did that was reminiscent of the Attitude Era's chaos, where Becky, Charlotte, and Ronda are brawling, trying to kill each other, and then they start getting the police involved, and I must say, these were the worst police officers I've ever seen, even for television. They get beaten up by these three women. They go ahead, drag them all across the arena to the parking lot to get them in police cars. And then, because police officers are apparently dumb in Vince's eyes, Ronda stole the night when she says, "We pay your taxes, not Vince McMahon!" And I was like, can I buy your character a little bit? And then Ronda stole it again when one of the officers were telling her, calm down. And Ronda was like, don't tell me how to live my life. And I was like, really, Ronda? You're going to be the angsty teenager now? Where the teenager, when people tell her, hey, look, are you going to think about what you want to do in your life? Don't tell me how to live my life, Dad or Mom. I'm a man. It was just... And then, because the police in the WWE universe are incompetent morons, they say, okay, these three women want to kill each other. Okay, put Becky and Ronda in the same police car. That's clearly not going to go anywhere. And then they start fighting each other with kicking each other to the point they break the glass window and shatter the whole thing. And then the police were like, holy fuck, what did we do? Quick, we need to somehow fuck this up more. Okay, we got Becky out. Take her to the police car with Charlotte in it. And then they open the door and Charlotte comes out and starts attacking. And I was like, you cannot be this stupid. You really couldn't be this stupid. Like, Vince, I know you hate society because of your delusions of grandeur as a god in your eyes, but come on. And then we get the piece de la resistance when Ronda, in her madness, decides to crawl her way to the back of the other police car, get in the front, and pull the SpongeBob style of driving by flooring the pedal and crashing into the next police car, wrecking it, leaving everyone freaking out, and I just left. Oh, man. And then the police were like, okay, take Becky and Ronda to separate police cars and get them out of here. We'll wait for another car to take Charlotte and hold her down. And then to end the segment, we get Ronda poking her head out of the broken glass window car. And then Ronda smashes her knee into the car. And I was like, damn. That had got to have gotten you a concussion. I hope not. But, like, that was memeified by the WWE fans and the wrestling Twitter in general. You should see them. But, like, oh my god. That was the best way to get me back interested in this match, besides it being history. Because I was hoping for some sort of chaos. I rather had this one-day night of chaos than weeks of slogging around and doing crutch angles to play off an injury angle at the hands of Nia Jax. So, yeah, this reminded me so much of the Attitude Era. Like, and I've heard some people say this felt forced and 100% unnecessary and felt overbooked, and, like, I can understand that. But I was thinking, like, what would happen if this was the Attitude Era and Rock, Austin, and Triple H did the same thing? That would probably be like, that was the greatest brawl in the history of brawls! Instead of saying, ugh, it was overbooked, too chaotic and messy and over the top. I'm pretty certain Austin, Triple H, and and Rock, specifically Austin and Triple H, would do the same thing if they were in Becky and Ronda's shoes. Austin especially driving the car, flooring it, and just crashing into the police car. And then they'll let out the next day with a court case set. Even though, let's be real, they're probably going to forget about the court part in a matter of days. And let's be real, if this was real life, none of these women would be like anywhere near WrestleMania. They'd be in the DC precinct, locked up they'd be sent to the DC penitentiary, and on multiple counts of resisting arrest, public endangerment, reckless abandon, vandalism, assaulting officers, and they would have so many counts and charges made against them. These women wouldn't be anywhere near WrestleMania. They'd be all locked up together, and we'd probably try and kill each other afterwards. Had to be locked up in here. Like, oh God. There we go to the final SmackDown of the WrestleMania event, and we get to Becky coming out, cutting this passionate promo how she's gonna be the one that wins both titles and raise them up in the air and call her double champ and everything, and ends the show ends the segment and build up on that. But I was like, oh man! And the way Becky showed up, a police car comes out. Becky's like, keep the change. And walks out like she just had an Uber ride with the police. I was like, even for wrestling, that just sounds royally stupid. But Becky's making us look cool. Yeah. And also, Dusty Rhodes was right. His last tweet, and not reply tweet, his last official tweet was that he sees Becky as the top 5 women, I believe. Let me see what Dusty Rhodes' last tweet was. Let me get that up. But he did talk about how Becky Lynch was what was gonna be a big deal one day. Okay, this is what he says. Lynch at NXT. Star time, she'd be great. Top 5 of the last 5 years. Max, number 1. And he basically said Becky's going to be number 1. She's going to be there. She's going to get to the top. And Becky on Twitter vowed that she's going to fulfill Dusty Rhodes' promise that what he saw in her. And Cody gave his support. And then Becky responds on Twitter by saying, good luck in ... Yeah, remember the whole Vince doesn't like AEW because AEW to him is a threat even though it's not trying to be a threat. So, and I didn't get into Becky's Twitter war game because that was the highlight of everything. And Ronda was massacring kayfabe a lot. Charlotte was nowhere to be found, no highlighted tweets. But Ronda was just killing kayfabe left and right. And I was like, I know kayfabe is dead to many, but can you please maintain some form of professionalism? Even Triple H would probably be telling you to tone it down. Be like, enough, Ronda. We get the point. Kayfabe's dead. Can you at least maintain some air of continuity and sense? No, my point has not been made. I must bash this industry more than I said I loved. More. So that's the thrilling road to WrestleMania's women's first ever main event match. That was also announced on WWE. It's like, because there was a report that they were debating between this match and the Universal title match that no one wanted to see. It was going to be debated whether or not it would be the main event instead of the very emotional storyline we were getting with Kofi Kingston and Daniel Bryan, because fuck the WWE title for all I care in Vince's eyes. So, yeah. I'll get to that at a later date when I talk about the WWE title or the Universal title. In fact, there's a personal FU to the Brock Lesnar title. I'll talk about it in the Kofi Kingston and Daniel Bryan video. But yeah, so the road to WrestleMania main event match for the women's wrestlers, for Becky Lynch, Charlotte, and Ronda Rousey. It finally got the energy on the last week of WWE's build-up. Like, it really needed a build-up after so many months of slogging it. So, yeah, I'm excited. I can't wait. I'm hoping Becky Lynch comes out on top because, let's see, Ronda Rousey has an undefeated streak, even though she lost in a tag match, but she wasn't pinned. Charlotte has been getting too many accolades in a short amount of time, so Becky really has earned this. So, yeah, and Becky's also the number one seller in WWE merchandise sales, also. And it was reported, and I have a very hard time believing this, that Vince now sees Becky as his chosen one, which I'm pretty sure either A, it's a lie, or B, he's going to go ahead and take all the credit, say, this was all part of the plan. Because he did this before with WrestleMania 30 when he tried to say that, oh, no. WrestleMania, all that was all part of the plan. It wasn't completely bullshitted around. It was 100% planned. This was always the plan. Even though Daniel Bryan and CM Punk, they dispute that and say it was never going to be the plan until Punk quit and everyone rioted against Batista. Wait. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Vince does that. So yeah, my thoughts on Becky Lynch, Charlotte Flair, and Ronda Rousey's main event WrestleMania match for both women titles on the line. That was my thoughts on it. This was Neo Reality Entertainment. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and donate and stay tuned for more.